Hello, I'm Mitch Hale, Hale Fireworks CEO, and we're at the Hale annual demo. It's in May, and huge amount of customers and some of our retail people come in, so it's a huge event. And the highlight of what we're doing is trying to get some of our old friends and customers and talk about some history. So I've got Bob Kell with me. And Bob, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe how you got started? I know your family got started
Yeah,
way back when, but
yeah. Way back when I was young, I was in the third grade, and we had a fruit stand on Old Highway 66 at the intersection of Highway 100 and 66. And Dad, we had all 7 kids in the family, and we were all these workers, and we had a sign there that said free ice water, and the people would pull off the highway and fireworks. We had a sign fireworks, and of course, they wanted to see the fireworks. A lot of people had never seen the fireworks, and they said, "We just want to let it. If you'll let my kids look at some of the fireworks." And so, Dad had an old wardrobe there, and we'd open the 2 doors on it, and that's how we started selling fireworks out of an old time antique wardrobe with the shelves in there and everything in there. And then at that time, we started expanding, and it was always a service over the counter, and we had a few old canvas tents and some stands that we had made out of wood. uh, Dad, we waited on the customers and tried to tell them, give them the pitch, and then that's how we sold them. And then one day he said, "You know what? I think we ought to try to do self-service." And so he started out. We put the old tents up. Started in Times Beach on on the highway there, and it worked pretty good. And then everybody started doing self-service. And then as I got older and started running stands myself. Actually, we were 7 kids in the family, and my brother and I were running stands when we were still in grade school. And Dad would come by and stock us, and we slept there and had to take a bath in a water barrel. So it was a lot of fun. And once you get hooked up with this stuff, you love it. And then as I went on my own, I met Mitch, and Mitch is a very hard worker and heck of a guy. And so we started having a lot of fun doing that, and he'd drop fireworks to me in the middle of the night, and he's a hard worker. And I can remember one time I sent him an order late in the afternoon, and he got there and woke me up. I was sleeping in my truck, but he was driving his old tractor trailer, working his tail off, and he got me unloaded and everything, and went on down his route and come back around. And heck, in the morning I wanted to call him about something. I think I'd got something that I wasn't supposed to have or something. I was just trying to call Hale's, and it was about 8:30 in the morning. I'd slept pretty good in the truck all night. Here, Mitch answers the phone again. I'm thinking, when do you quit? I had a lot of fun working with him, and he's a heck of a guy, and
well, thank you.
really made things work for me. And like I said, we got locked into that business, and all of us kids just loved it. The perishable business and the fruit, everything rotted and was hard work. We all said, you know what, fireworks, we stayed dry, we put them away and take them back out. We didn't clean up and sell them, and always we were traditional, tried to let the people know that what the 4th of July meant, and so it's been
Because
a real.
I was always a hard worker and raised in a family that our parents demanded that of us, and they taught us how to work, and I think Bob was similar,
Oh, yeah.
upraising.
Yeah, it's awesome. And what's so neat about it now is us old timers, we can talk, and you meet somebody that's another person that you haven't met that's been in the business for a long time. It's just kind of like an air with people that, man, you're one of them old boys. And so that's what's neat about working with him.
And that's what I told him. I was giving kind of a tour of the warehouse this morning to some customers in Mississippi that
Yeah,
I did business with their grandpa,
yeah,
and I said, sometimes I just step back and go, how did I get here? Well, I just get up every day and go to work, and
absolutely.
and
I remember when there was just nothing here. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch, when I was just a kid, had an article in the paper about one of the fastest growing businesses in the state, and it happened to be Hale Fireworks. And I wish I'd have kept that forever, that newspaper article.
sure we
'Cause it
could
was
put it in
pretty
a
neat.
museum.
Yeah, it would have been a shame not to
Sure.
have something like that. But you don't think then what you're doing when stuff that really would mean something to you.
I
But
think Rob's upbringing and his hard work ethic. When my mom passed away, I did part of her eulogy, and people would ask her, said, "Man, you guys are so lucky." Said, "You just seem like you just got the greatest luck." and you've done so well. And my mom replied, she said, the harder we work, the luckier we get.
That's
And
true.
that sure says a lot.
Yeah, she had a lot of good sayings, and you just love to come down and at the start of the season every year and meet her and talk to her some more. And when we had the meals over there at the restaurant, it was great. You know, it's just a nice family unit. Uh, it's just great. You know. So,
Time goes on. I
it
mean,
sure
I sure
does.
miss her.
Yeah, that's right. You know.
Yeah, I think May 1st, my dad's birthday was May 1st. And so we've got that big poster of him in the picture in there. And I went back and kind of looked at it, and he died in April 27th, 2003. But we buried him on his birthday, and he would have been 70. He was 70.
Yeah.
So he would have been, let's see, 20, he would have been 93 if he was still alive today.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a lot of fun too. You know, he's just a hard-working guy and demanded that boys do the work. You know, and just interesting to be around. And
Sure.
I know he ingrained a lot in you. You had to get that drive. You know, from what he said. Hey,
Sure.
you got to go out there and get it. You know.
We were talking with some people this morning, and I said, my dad never seemed like he appreciated me or complimented me as far as, good job or,
Yeah.
that boy. But he would definitely point out, the mistakes.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
the way he was.
He would say, there's never enough time to do it right, but there's always enough time to do it over.
Yeah.
And but I would get coffee shop talk, and they'd say, "Man, we talked to your dad, and he said you went to Louisiana, and you found a couple of spots down there, and man, it worked out good." And he said, "You're really going good." And I said, "He never tells me that."
Yeah, he was great. But then as you look back, the development they've had here, I can remember the old days when I come in and catch him after the season. I actually rented tents from him when it started, and he'd be there counting his money and talking and visiting, and just this building was a loading dock down there. He'd tell me stories about the season, and it was just fun. At first, he was a little different cat. Took me a long time to really get as close to him as I was with Mitch, but in the end, I really enjoyed coming down. I'd sit there and talk with him for a half hour, whatever it was.
Sure.
It was great.
Yeah. We had one customer, and Dad and the customer, they'd become really good friends, and then the guy's son, his name's Keith, and me became good friends. So I would settle up after season with Keith, instead of Dad and his dad. And so I was going to be gone, so I called my dad and I said, "Hey, Keith's coming in. He's going to bring money, but he's going to bring cash to pay." Yeah. And I called Keith. I said, "Hey, you'll be settling up with my dad instead of me." And so I called Keith the next day, and I said, "Hey, how'd you get along with my dad?" And he said it was okay. He said I came in, laid all my paperwork out, and I'd counted the money and had it all, and it was maybe up toward $100,000. He counted it all out, and he said, "Bob, here's all my records, here's everything, here's the money." And he said my dad got a trash bag, pulled it out from behind the counter, and just slicked all the money in there and put it under there and said, "How's your dad doing? Tell me about your dad." He's like, "Is that okay?" He said, "Yep, we're good." but that was him. If he liked you,
it's fun to talk about it and go back to think about the old days. Yeah.
Do you miss the produce business?
Absolutely not. And it's another fun story was one night I thought, well, I'm going to shoot one of these rockets. And back then they weren't regulated as much as they are now, which is probably a better deal that they've got safe and sane in 1.4G. But I got this big rocket and I took it out there and lit it, and that son of a gun flew up and it turned down towards my tent. And it ran into that canvas tent and punctured the hole, but it couldn't go through. And I thought, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me if that thing was coming towards that tent? But that was another good story. And
of course, it wasn't anything with us, but I had a guy that worked for me, and he wanted to open some locations in Mississippi. And so the Delta, we got 3 spots in the Delta, and it was a little tough, neighborhoods we were sitting in. So he calls me one day, and we had the tent set up, and he said, "Mitch, I got some good news and bad news." I said, "Well, tell me the good news." He said, "Well, I have 7 guys come in there and spread out and start trying to steal stuff. And my operator gets a shotgun, shoots up in the air, and scares them off." I said, "Well, that's the good news, I guess." And, yep. I said, "What's the bad news?" he was standing inside the tent when he shot up in the air. Now we got a 6-foot hole in the tent where he blew a hole in my tent.
Yeah.
So just going back to the first of our interview, we became very well acquainted because he was kind of my route to St. Louis. And, you know, if I had any room, I would call, and back then we had on cab over semi, and
Yeah.
I'd say, hey, I'm coming to St. Louis. It might be 2 or 3 days in a row sometimes.
Yep.
And he'd always give me some kind of an order. And I think my first stop was in Gerald, Missouri, and then his was the second stop. So I'd leave here at maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, and if I got unloaded at Gerald in decent time, I might be at his place at 3:30 or 4 or
Yep.
5, or
I'd be sleeping in the truck.
he'd be sleeping in the truck, and he'd hear me pull in and come out, and we'd unload, and
Getting on the road again.
yeah, and then I'd go on up. Usually ended up in St. Charles, but
Yeah.
a semi load about probably 7 or 8, drops.
Yep.
But I don't think I could do that anymore.
Boy, it amazed me when you did do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had all them old trailers here, and it was, you could tell it was a hard grind, but we all enjoyed it, and it was fun.
I know one of the progression pictures that you can see in the catalog and then on my wall, I think it's 2011, we had 365 semi-trailers
Yeah.
that we were working out of. So you can just imagine
Yeah.
getting up and down in those, and
No fork trucks, just
yeah,
hit it.
sure. When I met my wife Carrie, we went one day, and me and her and 2 guys, it took us almost a day to pull a $10,000 order out of those trailers. And she's like, Mitch, you got to get more efficient. You got to do something different. I said, like what? She said, build a building. So we built a big one.
Yeah.
And COVID came, and me and her would get up 4 in the morning and come out here, each get on a forklift and get an order. We could pull a $10,000 order in about an hour to an hour and a half. And I thought, what a great piece of advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought we'll never pay for this warehouse, but probably about 2 years it probably paid for itself.
Yeah.
So,
It's
but
just-
a great relationship, great friendship, and we'll just keep going until we can't go anymore. And
You got it.
I
Absolutely.
appreciate all
Yeah,
the
sure have.
friendship and the years
Yeah.
that we spent together. So we'll see y'all soon.
Yep.